As you can see, I'm doing another update on the politics of the US, which fundamentally affects all of us throughout the world. So it's as relevant to Australia as anywhere else in the world, and we need to speak about it. And I've entitled it From Comatose to Chaos, and I think that pretty well sums up what's been happening. We have a situation where we had a president in the name of Joe Biden who was asleep at the wheel. He really wasn't controlling things. A lot of people suspect that it was his wife and other people who were actually pulling the levers, and that wasn't a healthy situation. And the candidate he put up for presidency was Kamala Harris, who I think is one of the weakest candidates ever presented for the presidency, and made it pretty well a slam dunk for Donald Trump to win the election. I mean, she's basically a drunk party girl who really hasn't got a clue about running the country. Unfortunately, I would have to now put Trump in exactly the same category. So it makes you wonder, how can America pick such inept people to stand for the presidency or win the presidency? It's really worrying the way their system is working or not working in this case. But so I just wanted to make it clear that I have no love for the Democrats and their woke agenda, and I think that they had major flaws and were totally out of touch with Americans. It appeared as if Trump had the pulse of America. However, now he is just as out of touch as the Democrats with this latest ludicrous economic model of imposing tariffs on everybody, including friends and allies, and then changing his policies. But of course, he has one consistency. Good old Vladimir Trump didn't impose any tariffs upon Belarus or Russia because he loves dictators. That seems to be his preferred form of governance. And this is backed up by the fact that he's actually talking openly about working how he could manipulate a third term. You're only allowed to have 2 terms as president of America via the Constitution, but he was trying to work out ways of weaseling his way back into power. Boy, if ever someone wanted to look more like Vladimir Putin than Putin themselves, Trump's doing a great job of it, because Vladimir Putin was also restricted to 2 terms under their old constitution, but of course basically manipulated the whole system and changed it to his advantage. And I've got the feeling that Trump would do exactly the same thing. And is it any wonder that he admires Russia and the likes of Belarus so much? Because he basically has a dictator's mindset, and it's really worrying. But more importantly for the Americans is that his economic policies regarding tariffs is an absolute disaster. Peter Navarro was the architect of that list of countries that were being tariffed. And I mean, you know how ridiculous this list was when you see that one of a protectorate of Australia, which only had penguins on it, a small island with no people, was landed a 10% tariff. And then get this for logic, Norfolk Island, which has a couple of thousand people and it's the same sort of situation, a protectorate of Australia, was given 3 times the tariff level of that other island that's in the Indian Ocean. I can't remember the name. I can put it up on the screen if you like. But Peter Navarro put together this list on the imbalances in trade between each country and decided to levy a greater tariff on countries that were exporting way more than importing from America, and he gave them the greatest penalty. And one of those was Vietnam, which is 46% tariff, really high tariff. And what I find astounding about that is that Vietnam is doing America's work politically for it, because it's taking jobs away from China and weakening the Chinese economy, which is what Americans really do want. They're fed up with China exploiting loopholes and ripping off intellectual property, and now companies are now relocating from China to Vietnam. So if anything, he should be encouraging Vietnam, not discouraging them with a punitive tariff. But it's just staggering what he's doing. There is no rhyme or reason. It just smacks of amateur hour, the whole situation with Trump and his advisors. We had one of his national security advisor, who didn't even use a secure line to have a group discussion. I mean, that's the sort of level of laxness and ineptitude that is being shown by his appointees. It's just not up to scratch, and quite frankly, I can't wait for the day when Donald Trump is out on his arse, and it may be sooner than you think, because he's making a lot of enemies, not just amongst adversaries, but amongst friends. He is alienating himself by so many people, and anybody who thinks that the tariffs is going to be the panacea and is going to drive manufacturing jobs into America overnight, it's just not going to happen. What it is, in effect, is a tax. And Americans are now going to have to pay 10% more from countries like Australia for the tariffs, and about 125% more from China, which America now is in the middle of a trade war with. And they're going to find that their hip pocket is going to burn badly. And I think you will see that the popularity of Trump is going to slump even further. I'll put up on screen the latest Rasmussen popularity charts. It actually has recovered slightly once he changed his tariff policies, but he's still imposing 10% tariffs on countries like Australia, who supposedly have a free trade agreement with America. It's just ridiculous. The man hasn't got a clue, and I'm amazed at how inept he is. I mean, I thought Biden was inept. I thought Biden really wasn't making the decisions, but Trump is going down the same track. We have another leader who has no idea what they're doing, totally at sea. So we've got a situation where where he's punishing a country like Vietnam, and what are we going to do? We're going to have Vietnam sweatshops move to America? Is that what is in his tiny mind? Because that's one of the industries, textile manufacturing. They're jobs that Americans don't want, and if they did move there, they would be done. It'd have to be done in a high-tech fashion with robotics. Because people just wouldn't do it. They wouldn't have the labour force to do those jobs. And an advanced country like America shouldn't be doing that type of work. We have set up a global trade system throughout the world post-World War II, which has increased wealth throughout the world, because free trade, if you look at your history, and you can go as far back as Venice, looking at they had a free trade zone at one stage, and then they reneged on it, and of course their wealth dropped. But they were one of the first mega trade ports, like Singapore is today. Similar thing with Venice, and they were going gangbusters until they restricted the entrance that could conduct trade, and then they went downhill. So history repeats itself. Tariffs are not a smart move. If America is very good at high-tech stuff, which it should be concentrating on that, not grunt jobs in manufacturing. There are strategic manufacturing jobs that you can argue should be onshore, because you don't want to have any disruption to the line there. But look, as far as the American defence industry is concerned, they're sourcing parts from all over the world. Even Australia is actually providing, I wasn't aware of this, they're providing parts, I think it's to the F-35. So it's a global situation, and Trump seems to want to destroy this, because certain countries have advantages over others, but you have to have a stable international network to do that. And the other thing that absolutely staggers me about Trump, you could argue Trump would be a great president because he's got business savvy. He understands business. Well, Mr. Trump, Vlad, could you explain to me how businesses are supposed to invest short, medium and long term when they have absolutely no certainty about what your policy is? If you keep chopping and changing this ridiculous tariff policy, you're going to basically undermine business confidence in investment. And you are going to lead to America being in a deep recession. It's already pretty close to that edge now. If you look at their real estate market in places like Florida, it's tanking. The world is not in a strong economic position, and Trump's actions could well force us into another recession. So as I say, I know I'm in Australia. I know we've got an election coming up, but the big picture is what happens in America because it affects all of us. I will talk about the Australian election, but at some other time. Right now, we have absolute chaos happening with the Trump administration, which is affecting everybody. And the one thing electors really don't like is uncertainty and change, or this much change so quickly. And this Rasmussen poll, which I'm putting up on screen, will show you that Trump's overall approval is now -9. At one stage, it was -15 just a few days ago, prior to him actually changing policy on the tariffs. But that was just a short-term U-turn. He's still imposing 10% tariffs on us, supposed friends. He's just got to get rid of the whole tariff policy. Just get rid of them and become a free trade president. I don't mind him punishing China with punitive tariffs, but it will come back to bite the American consumer, and that will erode Trump's support even more, because people shopping at the dollar shop or Walmart, they're going to feel it in their hip pockets when these tariffs come through. There's already evidence that businesses who are importing goods from China that land and port now are adding at least 100% or more to the cost of those goods and could ruin their businesses. So Trump is really good at making enemies, except for one person, Vladimir Putin, who he seems to love and adore, and it makes me sick. I just do not understand it. He just doesn't seem to have a moral marker. I don't know. He doesn't seem to really care. He says he wants to stop the war in Ukraine. He's pretty well given up on that now. He knows now it's too hard. And just like with Kim in North Korea, he'll just give up on it and let it go. And he may pull support from Ukraine because he obviously hates Ukraine. He hates democracies, and he's a very destructive force. And as I say, I hope we see the end of his regime sooner rather than later, because I don't think the world can afford Donald Trump in the helm for much longer. By the way, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up and comment on this particular video. Everybody's got their own opinions, and I'm happy to hear from a diverse range of people. It's quite amazing how many echo chambers there are online, where you switch onto a channel and you look at the comments and no one will deviate from the tone that the speaker has set. I'm happy to hear comments from the other side. I was just listening to Jake Bro, who I don't agree on when it comes to his politics about America, but I do totally agree with when it comes to his policy on Ukraine. I'm happy to hear other people's opinions. I'm a libertarian. I'm not a Republican supporter. I'm certainly not a Democrat supporter in their current form, and I would call myself a libertarian. So that's where I'm coming from.